Alrighty, hello everyone. I wanted to make this quick video because there has been a change to how writing DriveTrain code uh, in the WPI libraries works. So what I want to do is I want to show you exactly how this works, and I also want to show you very quickly here in the beginning how to update your Eclipse plugins if they're already installed. So I'm going to open up Eclipse Oxygen here, and I'm just going to pick a random workspace. I don't remember which one was the last one that I was using. Yeah, this one will probably be fine. So generally speaking, each year the libraries do get updates, but they're usually not drastic like this, where there's big changes. Um, but we'll go over a couple of them really quick here. I can't make this video too long, simply because um, I have a limited upload speed here at my house, and I don't want it to take forever to upload because it will bottleneck my entire network. I'm hoping that this will only take about 10 minutes. Um, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Help, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to click Check for Updates. And you'll see down in the corner, if you're using Eclipse Oxygen, it'll say Contacting Software Sites. And if you actually double click on that, it will show you the progress in the console window. Uh, and it will take a little while. Once it reaches about 50%, it will prompt you if there are any updates that it needs to do. I'm going to pause for a second here just to not waste any time. So as you can see right here, I've got a lot of updates that need to run. But the one that you're really worried about is robot Java development. Now I'm going to run all of my updates. If you guys have other updates that need to be run, it's best to run them. There's nothing that's really going to be of any harm if you do or don't run them. But generally speaking, when they do have updates, it's better to have them than to not. So in this case, we do have the robot Java development update. You're going to click Next, make sure everything's checked off, and click Next. It's going to give you the details of the update, tell you which pieces need to be installed, what have you. And it's also going to give you an estimated size. Now, your size is going to probably be a lot smaller than mine. The Java development tools for FRC are actually only about 40 megabytes in size. They're fairly small. I've got actually about 213 megabytes of stuff to install. So this is going to take me a little while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Next. I'm going to accept the license terms. You will have to do this. This is part of FIRST and WPI's licenses. You do have to accept the terms. And then when you click Finish, the window will disappear. And if you double-clicked on this area down here, you'll actually see stuff start to update and download, and you'll see progress bars for different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for a couple of minutes here and just let it do its thing. So one thing that you will see when the software finishes downloading is you're going to get a security warning. This is something that can basically be ignored. The WPI libraries aren't signed. So it just means that it can't validate the signature because there is no signature to validate against. It just means that you can't really confirm that this came from WPI. Because of where we're getting the files from, and because of the fact that when we set up where we install from, we type in the address we want, that's really not an issue. So what you're going to do when you see this window is you're going to click Install anyways. And this is the part that's going to take probably a very small amount of time in general. It's just going to put the stuff that it needs to into place, and then it's going to ask you to restart Eclipse. So you're going to want to do that in order to be able to program with your new plugin updates. So click Restart, and what you're going to see happen is the window's going to disappear, and Eclipse's splash screen, that thing that says Oxygen on it, will reappear after anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds. It depends on the speed of your computer. Mine is going to be a little bit slower because one of the updates that I had was actually a revision to Eclipse itself. So it may take a second or two longer for it to actually trigger and reopen on its own volition. I actually haven't seen it. Oh, there it is. It's behind my sticky. So it is. So I was originally running Eclipse Oxygen 1A, but now I'm running Eclipse Oxygen 2 apparently. And I'm going to click Launch and wait. forever. I'm already at the 5-minute mark. Not doing bad on time. And it may take Eclipse a little bit longer the first time you're starting up after updating your plugins, especially if you had more than just the WPI libraries to update. And we're just ticking along here. There we go. Alright, so there are a couple of things that happen after the initial installation. For the most part, it won't take as long for you as it does for me because I got more stuff that I just installed. And it is going to rebuild your workspace once everything is all said and done. So if you had any other robot projects beforehand, they may be broken now. So the real reason why I wanted to create this was because there has been a change to how there's been a change to how you would normally do a robot drive base in code. Originally, you guys used robot drive, which we talked about, but robot drive was starting to get very cluttered. It had a lot of stuff stacked on top of it that really wasn't necessary. It really should have been split out, and that's what WPI and First have done. They've split out the process so that it's a little bit more concise which piece you're actually wanting to use. Now, I will say this. I just reviewed this last night. I reviewed it at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I'm going to do my best to make this as clear as possible. I do know why they did this. Whether or not it works for me right off the bat, I don't know. And obviously, I don't have a robot to test with. So you'll just have to bear with me a little bit. So I'm just going to call this new DriveTrain test. And I'm going to use my standard package tag. And I'm going to select iterative robot because that's what all of our other examples were in. And I'm going to click finish. And we're going to open up the robot. And this will look relatively similar to what we saw in the beginning each time before. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of junk here just because it's not actually necessary for us. Just really quickly. We're definitely going to go over the 10 minutes. I really didn't want to, but this video is already massive. It's still going to take me like an hour to upload it anyways, so whatever. Alrighty. So, what we're going to do is we're going to create our motor controller references first. And we're going to do that essentially the same way as before. With the exception that, let's say we're using Talons, we actually have to start off with the letters PWM, Talon, SRX, and then we'll just say left. And what we can do, apparently the suggestions are broken. Alright, well, there's an easy way to fix that. Let's look at the WPI library. So if we scroll around here, PWM Talon SRX is under edu.wpi. Okay, so at least we know where it is. And we spelled it right, so let's just import it by hand. So we'll say import edu.wpi.first.wpilib.j.pwm Talon SRX. And that will fix that issue. So what we'll say is private PWM Talon SRX right. And then this is where things get a little bit more different. To do tank drive and arcade drive, which is the two that we talked about, there's actually a new class called differential drive. It's under edu.wpi.first.wpilib.j.drive. And if we open it up, it's actually essentially the same thing as what robot drive was, with some exceptions. So bear with me here as we talk about this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say private differential. It's going to take so much getting used to typing differential drive DT. And I'm also going to create a joystick reference. And I'm going to make sure that those imports are there as well. And you can see that finally my import assist is working again. Sometimes after you update, that import assist window won't actually work correctly. Don't ask me why. It's a problem with Eclipse, not the plugins. I don't get it. But that being said, what we're going to do is we are going to initialize in essentially the same way as we did before. New PWM Talon SRX, and we're going to assume that it's on PWM 0, and then we're going to say write equals new PWM Talon SRX 1. And then the differential drive is set up essentially the same way. Differential drive left, right. It's set up essentially the same way as what robot drive was. And then, of course, we're going to set up a joystick real quick. Now, I will say this. There is a little bit of a difference to how you have to interface differential drive with the joystick. It's a little bit funny, I guess. I'm going to pause for a second. I gotta deal with something. So I moved my windows around a little bit while I was away. So it's a little bit different. You're still providing values from the joystick, but you have to sort of provide them yourself. And what I mean by that is rather than just handing the joystick to differential drive like you would with robot drive, you actually have to hand it the values from the axes that you want to use. So let me show you how that looks. So let's say that we wanted to set up arcade drive. What we would do is we would say dt.arcade drive. And you see that it now takes two double values, x speed and z rotation. It's basically asking you for the coordinate values of how you want it to move from -1 to 1. So the way we would do that is normally you use the y-axis on the left stick and the x-axis on the left stick of, let's say, an Xbox controller to move the robot around. So the way we would do that is we just say j1.getY. And that will produce the primary y-axis on a joystick. Usually whatever is going forward and back. On an Xbox controller, if you're using joystick and not the Xbox controller class, it's almost always, with the exception of some cheap Chinese Xbox controllers, almost always going to be the forward and back axis on the left and on the left joystick. And then for the Z rotation, you're not actually using Z, you're using the X-axis, which, like I said, on most Xbox controllers and on joysticks, with the exception of cheap Chinese ones, the X-axis is always the first axis that moves left and right. So on a joystick, it would always be the stick that moves left and right, and on an Xbox controller or something similar, it will almost always be the left and right for the leftmost joystick. So the way we do that is we say j1.getX. And that's basically it. That is the difference. Now there are some other things that I won't cover in this video, simply because I don't want it to be too long. Obviously, if you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. You can email me. I'm going to be sending this video in an email to the Teams group email. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. I will be around. Obviously, my team knows that I will be around, but for 2648, I will try to stop in at least once a week to check in and see if you guys have any questions that I can answer about programming. One thing that I would like to mention is Robot Drive is depreciated, meaning that the code is still technically there and you can still technically use it, but you shouldn't be. At some point, it is going to be removed. I don't know when this is going to happen. I can't say that it's going to be this year. In fact, I doubt that it's going to be this year. But I strongly recommend that you do not use it. Using this is no harder than using Robot Drive. In fact, this is actually a bit simpler because there's less stuff going on with differential drive than there is with Robot Drive. That being said, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm willing to help when I have the time. Obviously, my school starts back up here soon. I'm in college in my last year, so I've gotten to the 22nd before my schooling starts back up. But I am available to answer questions. If I don't respond to you immediately, I'm either at work or away from my computer. Give me some time. I will respond when I have an answer for you. But other than that, this is the general idea of how you should be programming a drivetrain for your robot from here on out. Alright, I think that's fine.